Hey, everybody. It is Wednesday, April 23rd. You're listening to the Mo News Podcast. I'm Moshe Nunu.
And I am Jill Wagner. This is the place where we bring you just the facts.
And we read all the news and read between the lines so you don't have to. Jill, great to see you on this Wednesday.
Moshe, always a pleasure.
Those of you who watch the podcast on YouTube, you're in a dark space right now, Jill. I want to see you with more brightness.
You know what? I finally thought I perfected my background, but I guess it needs some work.
You're on the road to perfection, but it's a very long road.
Let me de-smudge. Maybe that's it. Any better?
Slightly. Maybe it's the backlight coming through the curtain there. We're working on the home office there for Jill, but Jill's on the road right now in temporary headquarters. Temporary Mo News Long Island headquarters.
Exactly. So it's tough to really commit to the background when I know it's only temporary, but I will do better.
For this temporary, well, it's several month relationship now you're having with your current digs, we're going to go get you a nice bright ring light, Jill.
I have a ring light. That's
we're
on.
We're going to get you a brighter
it's
one.
On. And it's still, I don't understand. I feel like my backdrop is good.
All right. Any lighting experts on Long Island? We'll get you Jill's address and we're going to send you over there ahead of the Thursday pod.
Help.
It's all good. Look at how bright it is in the studio, Jill.
Yes, Moshe. Both the lighting and the snacks are definitely better at the office. So I hope to be back there later this week or next week.
We await your valiant return on the Long Island Railroad.
I'm learning to love the LIRR. All right, let's get to some news. The new plan to phase out food dyes from our food supply. The Supreme Court looks like it could support parents who want to opt out on school books for their kids that have LGBTQ plot lines. We're also learning more about Pope Francis's final hours. In media news, a huge shakeup at 60 Minutes, why the head of the venerable news show says he's stepping down.
I'll bring you some perspective from my time at CBS.
To Wall Street, profits at Elon Musk's Tesla fell 71%. What that means for Musk's future in the Trump administration.
Paging Elon Musk back at Tesla HQ.
Beyonce's mom, Tina Knowles, reveals a breast cancer battle after she missed a mammogram. The warning for other women. And tennis star Andre Agassi getting ready to go pro in pickleball. Plus, Moshe is on this day in history.
To be or not to be born on this day or not to be born on this day. An important question, and that's your clue as to who might have been born on this day.
Moshe, would that be one William Shakespeare?
Oh, we have a Hamlet fan in the house.
I mean, if you don't get that reference, then you just didn't read in high school lit, I think, right? You just did nothing. Even I, who read the Cliff Notes, got it.
It's a fairly popular pop culture reference, but there's a mystery around the date that we'll go into Shakespeare a bit on this day in history.
All right, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. making his first big move to try to improve the food supply. On Tuesday, he announced that he'll be directing food manufacturers to phase out 8 petroleum-based food dyes that are found in hundreds of thousands of grocery store staples. We are talking about dyes used in cereals, sports drinks, and a slew of other foods. The changes will have a major impact on food companies like General Mills, the Kraft Heinz Company, and PepsiCo. RFK Jr. met with the heads of those food companies recently. Here is a bit of his announcement on Tuesday.
I said, if they want to add petroleum, if they want to eat petroleum, they ought to add it themselves at home. But they shouldn't be feeding it to the rest of us without our knowledge or consent.
Moshe, petroleum on a bagel. Sounds delicious.
Well, now that it's out of the food supply, you'll definitely have to make it for yourself at home moving forward, Jill.
So this initiative is all part of Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again agenda. He's looking to combat chronic disease and overhaul the American food system. The FDA currently allows for 36 food color additives, including 9 synthetic dyes, one of which is red number 3, which the agency moved to ban back in January because of cancer concerns in rats. And while the health risks of the dyes in humans is still debated, some have been linked to hyperactivity and behavioral issues in children. Health advocates have long criticized food dyes. They cite a limited body of research connecting them against that hyperactivity and other neurobehavioral problems in kids. The FDA regulates about 80% of the country's food supply. California banned red dye number 3 back in 2023. The FDA, though, regulates about 80% of the nation's food supply. Kennedy now wants to phase out 8 dyes that are widely used within the U.S. In European markets, companies are required to use warning labels if they add them to foods. And in Canada, they already use natural color substitutes. Kennedy had long said he wanted to remove certain chemicals from the food supply, pointing out, for example, that in Canada, Fruit Loops get their bright color from blueberries and carrots instead of red number 40, yellow number 5, and blue number 1, like we have in the American versions.
Yeah, the thing with a lot of these dyes is they're just there to make the food look more attractive. They don't have any nutritional benefit. So a lot of folks say around this, we spoke to an expert on this with Consumer Reports yesterday, and he's like, if it's not doing anything for nutrition and it might lead to issues, then why not just get it out there and replace it with natural food dyes? Now, we should note that as of yesterday, the FDA and the food industry don't have a formal agreement yet, but it's an understanding. So it's not clear if these companies don't comply with this, what enforcement actions the FDA can take. Now, the head of the FDA, Marty McCary, says there are a number of tools at our disposal, but his quote is, "I believe in love. Let's start in a friendly way and see if we can do this without any statutory or regulatory changes. But we are exploring every tool in the toolbox to make sure this gets done very quickly, and they want to do it. So why go down a complicated road with Congress here?"
That's quite a strategy, Moshe. Love. That
Love,
usually
love,
works
love.
for
Well,
publicly traded companies.
Yeah, Pepsi, Kraft, they respond in love and not the profits that they have to present shareholders every quarter. Because we should note that it is more expensive to go with some of these natural dyes versus these petroleum-based dyes. And so the natural things they could be doing are using things like watermelon juice or beet juice instead of red dye, carrot juice instead of a yellow chemical and a red chemical mixed together, and so on and so forth. Now, the food companies still say there's no actual evidence, or they don't believe there's enough evidence to connect these ingredients with health outcomes. The FDA has long maintained that it has reviewed and evaluated the effects of color additives and believes that most children have no adverse effects. Emphasis on the word most, but some do. And that's the case that Kennedy is making here, that McCary, the head of the FDA, is making here. And so he said, my feeling is, why gamble with the health of our children here? None of this will happen overnight. This is probably a multi-step process over a number of years. I mean, it's a complicated manufacturing process, global, et cetera. There will be a period of time when they make changes like this that will require public comment, testimony here. Now, in some cases, some of these companies have made moves voluntarily. But remember, they might be looking long-term here thinking, Kennedy is only there for 4 years, potentially. If we wait this or, run out the clock here, let's see if the next administration wants to continue this or not, or prioritize this or not. Nonetheless, you do have a bunch of social media activists who've been pushing for this, saying, we need to be prioritizing what is in our food, who are claiming victory here. This has been an issue that, going back a decade or two, that really fell on deaf ears, but has really caught resonance, especially in recent years on social media, especially, and now with RFK there over at Health and Human Services, is a priority item for him. So we shall see what happens here, but a big step there by HHS.
All right, time for the speed read from Bloomberg. The Supreme Court appears likely to rule in favor of parents who objected to books with gay and transgender characters being made available in elementary schools. The justices heard the case Tuesday that could further expand religious rights. They scrutinized a Montgomery County, Maryland storybook program whose materials include books about a puppy that gets lost at an LGBTQ pride parade. The court's conservatives suggested support for parents who want the ability to pull their children from public school classrooms that include the books. Justice Samuel Alito said that the parents, quote, are not asking the school to change its curriculum. They're just saying, look, we want out. Why isn't that feasible? What is the big deal about allowing them to opt out of this?
And Alito is a member of that 6-3 conservative majority there on the Supreme Court. In a number of cases in recent years, they have backed religious rights. And they seemed pretty sympathetic during those arguments yesterday, if you listen to some of that 2.5 hours of oral arguments towards the parents' claims here that the Montgomery County Board of Education in Maryland violated their religious rights by failing to provide an opt-out for their children. One of the books was called Uncle Bobby's Wedding. It featured a gay character who's getting married. Another book was called Born Ready. It's about a transgender child who wants to identify as a boy. Some of the parents in this case, including Muslims, Orthodox Christians, objected on religious grounds under the First Amendment of the Constitution, saying their children, through freedom of religion, should be able to opt out of any exposure to that content. So there are a number of cases actually that the Supreme Court is considering in this term that have an impact on religion and public life here. Over the course of the past decade, given the conservative majority, they have typically sided with the religion side of the case. And of course, that has come under criticism from those on the left or those who are less religious. One of the three liberals on the court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, said the suing parents were seeking to strip authority from democratically elected school boards that can be responsive to local concerns. Under the parents' approach, this is Justice Jackson here, she says you have federal judges flipping through the picture books and deciding whether these are appropriate for 5-year-olds. So that's the case. You hear that from Jackson. But again, it appears here, based on the conservative majority, based on the arguments and the way that they went here, that the 6-3 majority will likely be voting and deciding in favor of the parents in this case. We can expect a decision in late June.
From USA Today, Roman Catholic cardinals gathered Tuesday in Vatican City to begin a period of prayer, reflection, and preparation for the funeral of Pope Francis as details of his final hours emerged. The congregation of about 60 cardinals is planning Francis's funeral, which will take place Saturday at 10 a.m. local time in St. Peter's Square. That means that it will be starting at about 4 a.m. Eastern time or 1 a.m. Pacific time on Saturday morning if you are planning to watch it live. As we've reported, Francis, who is 88 years old, fell into a coma and died of a stroke and heart failure on Monday morning. Just hours earlier, he had blessed an Easter Sunday crowd in the square from a balcony and then rolled among the crowd in his Pope-mobile to cheers. The Vatican says that he had been hesitant about taking the Pope-mobile trip into St. Peter's Square, even asking his personal assistant, "Do you think that I can manage it?" The assistant was with the Pope on Easter Sunday and said that Francis's final words included, "Thank you for bringing me back to the square," for encouraging him to take that ride in the Pope-mobile after the Easter service.
Yeah, I watched some interviews with some of the people who were in the square that day, and so impactful to them to be able to see the Pope, now knowing, of course, those were his last hours of life. As for that funeral on Saturday, we are learning about some of the leaders who will be attending. President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will be attending in person. They've confirmed the British Prime Minister will also be there. The French president, the president of Argentina, of course, the Pope was originally from Argentina, the president of Brazil, among others. Pope Francis followed a long tradition in influencing global affairs, meeting with a lot of foreign leaders over time. He was actually the first pope to address a joint session of Congress. There's a heartfelt post by a former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, about that in the last day, talking about his experience, especially as a Catholic, being able to be present for that. One of the things we're also learning about his final days here is that apparently he would call a congregation, a Catholic congregation in Gaza every night, nearly every night during the war over the course of the past year and a half. And that included a call about 36 hours before he died. There's a very small Christian community in the Gaza Strip. He also pushed for the war and the conflicts in Ukraine and Sudan, among others, to end. So he very much took a global focus on global issues. And that's going to be one of the big questions for the cardinals, who are going to be voting on who the next pope is. Again, that's the week of May 5th, the conclave, the ever-secretive conclave that'll be taking place there. And they're going to decide on who the next pope is and whether they want someone who's similar to Francis, takes on these big global issues, is looking to make the church more open, more progressive, again, progressive by Catholic Church standards, or they want someone focused on doctrine. And they want someone focused on the religiosity and scripture and that sort of thing. And so you've had, Benedict was one of those. Now Francis was one of the others. And so did they go back to more Benedict type? Did they go back to a more Francis type? And so we will know that depending on when they come to a decision there the week of May 5th. And the white smoke that we're looking out for, Jill, will emanate from the chimney.
If anyone can decipher whether or not it's actually white or black.
Maybe it was the TV set. Maybe it was the TV set you guys at NBC.
It was 20 years ago. So
it was 20 years ago. Like it was you were still on tube you were at tube televisions back then. Did they have color TV? Was there color TV by 2005?
Oh, we're tuning it in with antennas.
Because the footage now that I've seen, it was pretty clear the white is very white. The black is more grayish. So I think that's the thing, is like the black is sort of confusing every time they put up the black smoke when they don't have a winner. That sort of looks grayish, but the white is very white. And so heads up, and I'm sure we'll be addressing this in the coming days.
To some media news from the New York Times, the executive producer of 60 Minutes, Bill Owens, said yesterday that he would resign from the Sunday night CBS News program because he had lost his journalistic independence. Owens is only the third person to run that program in its 57-year history. He told staff in a memo that, quote, over the past months, it has become clear that I would not be allowed to run the show as I have always run it, to make independent decisions based on what was right for 60 Minutes, right for the audience. So, having defended this show and what we stand for from every angle over time with everything I could, I am stepping aside so that the show can move forward. Most 60 Minutes has faced mounting pressure in recent months from both President Trump, who sued CBS for $10 billion and has accused the program of unlawful and illegal behavior, and its own corporate ownership at Paramount, which is the parent company of CBS News.
Yeah, we should know that $10 billion lawsuit is actually a $20 billion lawsuit. Trump changed it over time, Jill. He initially said, I'm going to sue you for $10 billion. Actually, I'm suing you for $20 billion. So there is a money element to this. There's a political element to this. We should note the controlling shareholder for Paramount, the parent company of CBS. Her name is Sherry Redstone. She's very eager right now for FCC approval of their sale to Skydance. Now, Skydance is a company which is incidentally run by the son of tech billionaire Larry Ellison, who happens to be close to Trump. And so the FCC has to approve the deal where Paramount sells to Skydance, and Sherry Redstone has a multi-billion-dollar payout if that deal goes through. But the FCC has shown itself to be very aggressive in the Trump term. The FCC head, Brendan Carr, has said, I don't know if I'm going to approve that. And politics are at play here. And so with that in mind, Sherry Redstone is looking to do things to ensure she gets her dough and she's able to sell Paramount, which includes CBS News. So as far as she's concerned, and this is one of the issues at play here, she's okay with a payout and a settlement, even if the lawsuit itself by Trump is considered to be going nowhere. It's a $20 billion lawsuit where he has taken issue with an edited interview of Kamala Harris from the campaign, and 60 Minutes released a clip with a question and part of one answer, and then a different version of that answer at a later time. So they had a clip on one Sunday morning, and then they eventually played a different part of that answer, a kind of slimmed down version of that answer in the eventual 60 Minutes episode. By the way, we should note this is not abnormal. Sometimes you have to cut things down for time. But 60 Minutes wasn't very transparent about it. And some people believe that it made Kamala Harris look better. I should say, having watched both of those answers, listened to both answers, neither of them was particularly that great. They were very vague. But that's another issue altogether. And 60 Minutes afterwards refused to release a transcript, refused to say much about it, was very defensive about it, leading to this lawsuit. And that speaks to a number of things, including that 60 Minutes sort of lives on an island of its own at CBS and sort of does its own thing. And so ultimately here, that's part of the independence Bill Owens is talking about. They should be able to do whatever they want. They're the show that brought you Mike Wallace and Morley Safer and Ed Bradley, kicking ass, taking names, not giving a crap what anybody thinks. And he wants to continue to be that way. Well, Sherry Redstone says, well, what about my deal? I have a multi-billion-dollar deal, and I want the FCC to approve it. So, whatever. We got to pay him a couple million and apologize for the interview. Let's just do it. And I think that is my understanding based on talking to people, that Owens is like, you know what? I'm out. Like, I'm not dealing with that anymore. And you're seeing this more and more, Jill. At ABC News, there were a lot of people frustrated, including George Stephanopoulos, that Disney basically made them settle a lawsuit with Trump recently, which was, again, another lawsuit that, legally speaking, you talk to First Amendment experts, was probably going to go nowhere. But Disney was like, you know what? We got too much business with the government. Let's just cut a deal here. And it's not even just the media. Trump is taking aim at law firms that he feels have been unfair, that have been representing folks suing him. And so he's been very aggressive with executive orders, really trying to make law firms feel the pinch. Some law firms, as we've told you, have settled with the government. Some law firms are fighting the government. And by the way, the ones that are fighting in court, the executive orders are being thrown out by judges because they're saying this is not legal. But ultimately, those law firms that have settled say, you know what, we have way bigger fish to fry. Let's just cut a deal with President Trump here. So now you're seeing that in that space. You're seeing that in the university space. Look, Columbia is ready to cut a deal. Harvard, not so much. Law firms, yes. Law firms, no. Media institutions looking to fight. Media institutions looking to say, eh. And at CBS, you're seeing that fight play out internally. And so that's one of the interesting things here, that this is not just about the executive producer of 60 Minutes resigning. This is a larger debate happening within media organizations owned by corporate parents with business who have news arms and what's going on there. And it's the same thing we've told you about the Washington Post situation. Who owns the Washington Post? Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos has a lot of business with the government, and you've seen him intervening in some ways that he's never intervened before because he's worried about the fights he's having here with the administration.
Right. In some ways, you have these tech billionaires who came in and helped to save and preserve these legacy media institutions and keep them alive. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, they've got some big conflicts of interest.
Yeah, it turns out that owning a news organization is a total pain in the ass. If it's, I'm just saying.
How's it working out for you, Moshe?
Well, I started my own. We started our own here at Mo News, and it's great until we get bought by Disney one day, and then Disney will be like, you know what? Having Mo News is a total pain. Moshe, Jill, we need you on the podcast tomorrow to say the following or not cover the following. And so, that's the fun of being independent, right? And so I think, you bring up the tech billionaires, in the case of CBS, owned by Paramount, looking to be sold to Skydance, run by David Ellison, son of Larry Ellison, a tech billionaire. And so I think there's a lot of billionaires who got into this game because they like the influence. And some of them, frankly, have a public service, element to it. They like the idea of informing the country and saving news, etc. But you find out that it's a liability. It's difficult for the rest of your business to have a news division. I think they're seeing that at Disney. At Disney, do you think Bob Iger likes ABC News? No, he likes his amusement parks and his cruise ships. And he wants, and what does a news division do? Sometimes it's investigating the people who you're in business with. And so it leads to challenges. And now I will say in my experience that for the most part, when I was at CBS, I never got a call at the evening news saying, don't cover X, Y, and Z. I would give them a heads up saying, hey, we have a bad story for Ford today or a bad story for Pfizer today. You might want to inform them they want to cut their commercial from tonight's broadcast because it's not going to look nice. And that was typically the way things have gone. The argument you have here from Owens and others is that those days seem to be behind us. There seems to be more influence here. There seems to be a fear of Donald Trump and what he could do. And, there's a lot of folks internally who don't like that. And so I think it's going to be a fascinating thing as more details come out here and see what happens. And at the same time, you have a Trump administration who says, you know what? You guys are so liberal and you're so critical of ours. We are going to go after you guys and we're going to make you feel it where it hurts. And that's the same case they make against Harvard. It's the same case they make against these law firms. The same case they make against the media. And so you're seeing a fight that's always existed, but happening at a next level here. And it's fascinating to see kind of how this is going to play out. And frankly, how, we view it today, but how we'll view it years from now in terms of kind of what the impact of all this is. And is this a permanent shift? Is this a temporary shift? Is going to be one of the big questions. And that, my friends, was not a speed read.
No, that was what we call a deep dive.
Deep dive. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk midway through this podcast.
Moshe, if there's anyone, though, who could provide insight on this, it is you, having been in management at CBS News. And look, 60 Minutes was at least at one time considered the gold standard for journalism. Every weekend, every Sunday night, breaking news, talking to world leaders or talking to newsmakers. And so what happens there really does matter. Okay, now some business news we're tracking from the Wall Street Journal. Tesla said Tuesday that its profits fell 71% in the first 3 months of the year. The company said it earned $409 million, down from $1.4 billion in the first quarter of 2024. Tesla sales have been slumping because of the intense competition from Chinese car makers like BYD, a lack of new models, and Elon Musk's support for far-right causes, which has turned off some liberals and centrists from buying Tesla vehicles. Moshe, dare we say those liberals, probably Tesla's bread and butter. Tesla still is the most valuable automaker in the world as measured by its stock price, and it sells far more electric vehicles in the United States than any other company. But certainly you never want to be in a position where your profits are down almost 100%.
Yeah, though the stock was up in after-hours trading Tuesday, that ultimately traders feel that the stock is still undervalued, that it is a super valuable company. The shares have lost half of their value since mid-December. People have been pessimistic about it. Musk's role in the administration has certainly had an impact here. The earnings here were below Wall Street expectations. And we should add, Musk had hoped to sell 20 million vehicles a year by the end of this decade, twice as many as Toyota. But sales have been sliding after climbing to about 1.8 million back in 2023. Last year, they sold 1.7 million. It looks like they'll sell less this year. So definitely the wrong direction if you're looking to get to 20 million by the end of the decade. Now, we should add that Musk does have a temporary role, and they have talked about the fact that that's going to run out in a late May, early June. So it looks like he will be returning to spend more time with his companies, right? It's not just Tesla. He's got SpaceX. He's got X. He's got a variety of startups there in addition to everything he's been handling with Doge. So I think there's a lot of anxiety among sort of the larger shareholders. They're sort of like, Elon, we sort of need you to spend more time on this and less time on the whole cuts Doge thing.
Yeah, can you get back to sleeping on the couch in the Tesla factory?
And
please?
not on the couch in the old executive office building next to the White House.
From CBS News, Tina Knowles, the mother of Beyonce and Solange, is opening up about her recent battle with breast cancer. The 71-year-old telling CBS News she was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer in her left breast after doctors discovered 2 tumors during a delayed mammogram appointment. The American Cancer Society recommends a mammogram every 1 to 2 years for women over the age of 55. Knowles explained that she missed her routine screening during the COVID-19 pandemic and then didn't reschedule until last year.
That's when doctors found 2 tumors. One was benign, but the other one had stage 1 cancer. She was later informed that if she had maintained her regular screenings, detection might have occurred at stage 0, which according to the American Cancer Society is when the cancer has not spread beyond breast tissue. Despite the delay, apparently this tumor was considered slow growing. She did undergo a lumpectomy and is now considered cancer-free, but still an important warning from that story to maintain your regular screenings.
And from CNBC, tennis legend Andre Agassi is joining the pro pickleball ranks. The former number 1 ranked tennis player says that he'll be playing his first professional tournament at the U.S. Open Pickleball Championships with the top-ranked player in the world, Anna Leigh Waters. That tournament kicks off on Saturday in Naples, Florida. It will be broadcast on CBS Sports Network. The idea to play together came from 18-year-old Waters, who was looking for a mixed partner for the biggest pickleball tournament of the year.
So she's 18. Agassi looks like he's turning 55 this weekend, Jill, but still out there on the courts. And, given what I know about pickleball or what I've witnessed about pickleball in Florida, that is the sport to get into your retirement until you injure yourself. We have done the story before, actually, on the number of seniors with injuries related to pickleball. So be careful out there, kids.
That's something my husband always says because he has terrible knees and he had knee surgery. And I guess maybe from talking to the surgeon, I had started to play pickleball and he's like, I don't know, like my surgeon's office is filled with pickleball injuries.
It's been huge. It's been huge for surgeons. Like they're like, keep playing the pickleball. It keeps us busy here. Anyway, the U.S. Open Pickleball Championships was founded back in 2016, so just less than 10 years old, but they are drawing crowds of up to 50,000 people each year. Waters earned $3 million playing pickleball in 2024. She's emerged as one of the sport's biggest and most marketable stars. The numbers on this are pretty incredible, Jill. They say that pickleball has grown 311% over the past 3 years. I don't know how they get to that number, but again, people weren't talking about pickleball, and then they are talking about pickleball, and now they're talking about pickleball going to the Olympics at some point. And so pickleball players apparently are now making more money than WNBA players, as well as National Women's Soccer League players. So even in the women's sports space, pickleball is blowing up. So this will be a moment for pickleball with Agassi taken to the court this weekend. We'll see how he does alongside the star there, Anna Leigh Waters. All right, now for On This Day in History. To be born or not to be born? That is the question. On this day in 1564, William Shakespeare was born, we think. Now, we don't have confirmation that he was born actually on April 23rd, 1564, but what we do have confirmation of is that he was baptized on April 26th, which I'm told is customary to be baptized 3 days afterwards. So they, took the baptism date -3, and that's why we've declared that he is born here on April 23rd. Notably, Jill, William Shakespeare, 52 years later, would die on April 23rd. Curtain call, if you will. So born on April 23rd, allegedly, died on April 23rd. The story of William Shakespeare. Fill in the blanks there. He wrote a lot of famous stuff in between.
Very poetic, the bookends of his life.
It is a poetic, exact way to begin and end there. All right, let's forward here to 1896. The first movie projector was shown to the public on this day in 1896 in New York. It was called the Vitascope, And slowly but surely, we would begin seeing things at the theater. On this day in 1914, Wrigley Field hosted its first Major League Baseball game. Shout out to my Chicago Cubs, the home of the Chicago Cubs, Wrigley Field. Beautiful place still, all these years later, to see a baseball game. The two oldest parks in baseball, Wrigley Field and Fenway, up there in Boston. On this day in 1984, the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Margaret Heckler at the time, announced that researchers had found what was believed to be the virus that caused AIDS. It was considered a mystery virus in the years preceding there. They would find that agent. They would later identify it as HIV. Sticking with the 1980s, on this day in 1985, one of the more infamous corporate moments in history, Coca-Cola announced that they had reformulated the recipe for Coca-Cola, referring to it as New Coke. Jill, a wave of protests ensued for New Coke, people wanting the original thing, which hence why they call it the original. The company was flooded with 8,000 calls a day. They were receiving tens of thousands of complaint letters. The CEO got one letter addressed Chief Dodo, the Coca-Cola company. People were very mad that they messed with the Coke formula. And so very quickly, 3 months later, they went back to the original.
I mean, if it ain't broke, Moshe.
Well, it wasn't, and they heard it. And so one of the reminders in corporate history that, like, you might be sitting there in the boardroom being like, we should change things. But then the public will let you know that you absolutely should not be changing things. On this day in history, happy 20th birthday to YouTube. The first YouTube video was posted on this day. There was a time, kids, before YouTube. The video was me at the zoo. It was uploaded by the co-founder. It was literally him at the zoo. It was like a home video. That's what they thought it would be good for. There was a time before 2005, pre-YouTube, that like getting online videos was like impossible. Searching was impossible. And so YouTube making that much more efficient, now owned by Google, of course. And you can watch this Mo News podcast as well as our daily videos over there on the Mo News YouTube page. TV history, Baywatch premiered on this day 36 years ago on NBC on this day in 1989.
That was some great acting on Baywatch.
Everyone watched it for the acting, Jill.
Of course. The storylines.
And David Hasselhoff would become the most famous person in Germany, among other places. A lot of stars came out of Baywatch there. And finally, on this day in 1983, turning 42 years old today, Come On Eileen by the band Dexy's Midnight Runners reaches #1 on the Billboard charts. Jill, fun fact for you, there was no Eileen. Eileen is a composite. They're trying to make a point about Catholic repression.
I'm speechless. I have to go and read all of the lyrics now because I obviously
You're like, I think about Eileen. Come on,
Eileen.
You know, it's Eileen. Who is this Eileen? Guess what? She doesn't exist. She never existed, folks. But shout out to Dexy's Midnight Runners. You know, they're a one-hit wonder band, but like, what a hit, right? What a hit.
If you're going to have one hit, Come On Eileen is a pretty good one. It lives on.
And it lives on, despite the fact that there was no Eileen.
All right, anyone who's listening to this in the car, throw on Come On Eileen. It is such a feel-good story. It'll make you feel good on this Wednesday. Thank you for listening to the Mo News Podcast. If you like what you hear, please share this with your friends. It will help us grow. Follow us and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thank you guys so much for all the kind reviews in the App Store. It really does help us to grow. And if you have not reviewed us yet, please do so.
All right, everybody. It's Wednesday. To quote another 80s song, we're halfway there.
Oh.
Living on a prayer. We'll see you tomorrow.
I was thinking you were going to give some sort of like hump day song, but I'm like, what 80s hump day song is there? Halfway there. That's a good one.
It's the Humpty Dance. I could have got a Humpty Dance.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Mo News Podcast. Have a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed.